Breaker Breaker, this is Striker Star 19, and I just played through Mortal Kombat 11 Aftermath, the long anticipated, and by long anticipated I mean less than a month, I think, follow up to Mortal Kombat 11. They just did a few extra story chapters. Um, this was interesting. I don't know if I really like it or like really don't. It's weird for me. I think that was to be expected given the strong feelings I have on Mortal Kombat and and how strongly I felt about Mortal Kombat 11's ending, which personally tore me apart in so many levels. I hate it so much. It just really peeved me off. I'm sure anyone following this channel somewhat consistently is aware of how and why. But anyway, this was like kind of the gleaming second chance. They pulled all the DLC characters that aren't the third party guest characters, so like Terminator, Spawn, RoboCop, Joker, and they put them into a few additional story chapters and released that. And my interest was very piqued. I thought it looked pretty cool. Like the first trailer had me super hyped. I was like, okay, especially because the two additional characters who were real like top build, who weren't in the first combat pack, were Fujin and Shiva, who we haven't seen in entirely too long. I like them both. And then Shang Tsung, straight up like one of the best Mortal Kombat characters, top build. Nightwolf and Sindel playing big role. I was like, yeah, I like all these characters a lot. I'm in. I'm all in. In execution, it wasn't quite as exciting as I thought it would be, mostly because this was kind of a retread of the second half of the Mortal Kombat 11 story, and that's kind of literal. That's very much in a literal sense the case because they frankly intercept the storyline right at Kitana's fight with Shao Kahn and sneak in and kind of start to mess with the story from there. They being Shang Tsung, Nightwolf, and Fujin. Now, what this opens the opportunity for is for them to tamper with the events of Mortal Kombat 11 and create yet another diverging timeline, kind of. Not really sure where to start, because dreaded as I am to side with Liu Kang, because Mortal Kombat 11 made me hate him for multiple reasons. It was interesting to see him trust Shang Tsung, honestly. I thought that was just kind of a fun thing. And it does feel a bit like, well, here's the three characters people want, and that's Shang Tsung, Nightwolf, Fujin, and I guess they'll team up. It does kind of fit as just kind of the last remaining survivors that Kronika apparently banished to avoid. And now it's up to them to reclaim the crown with which Liu Kang can't build any new timeline at all. There would just be nothing. Which, right off the bat, that's a little like, well, it's not exactly what I wanted because the idea of resetting a new timeline was what really dismayed me overall, given how much I just really adored the current timeline, MK9, MKX, and those characters, and starting a new timeline would probably dismiss a lot of that and kind of bum me out. And by kind of bum me out, I mean destroy my enthusiasm for Mortal Kombat for at least some time. But I was willing to give it a chance because I knew Shang Tsung would be up to shenanigans in the first place. Like he wasn't gonna leave any of this just unchanged. Um, Delving into it, the first chapter is Nightwolf, and after that, Nightwolf is not important again. And that's super unfortunate because Nightwolf is who killed Sindel, and they don't really touch on that besides when he fights her Revenant, kind of. I kind of thought they'd be like the two enemies that would have to put their differences aside for this chunk of the story. But he has a fight with Collector, who gets, in fairness, Collector was a very underused character, because he's pretty neat in of himself. He just didn't get enough screen time in 11. And you get a kind of neat moment with him, but you don't see him at all past that first fight. Uh, Nightwolf fights Collector. I can't remember who came right after that, but then it's Revenant and Sindel, Revenant Nightwolf. Um, and yeah, they kind of just put Nightwolf in there to fill the quota of him even being there. And past that, he's super not important, to be honest, until he challenges Shang Tsung at the end. The next chapter after that was oh, who was it? So it wasn't Sindel yet. I don't think it was Fujin yet. I literally just played this. I feel like I'm losing my mind. No, I think it was Fujin. That's because they just went right to the island from there. No, I'm silly. It was Shiva. It was Shiva. So we cut to Shiva next, and Shiva was also kind of a letdown because I like Shiva a lot. I think she's such a cool character. Here's this proud Shokan warrior queen. She's incredible. She's like more level-headed than like Goro or Kintaro, and she's the in the comics. Kintaro died and Goro got dismembered. But I don't remember if he actually died. I think he just lost his arms and couldn't fight anymore. So now Shiva's the queen of the Shokan. I think that's so neat. She's been a long absent character, but she's just always been present enough that it makes me smile to see her get this big big moment of hers. And they play up her role in MK3 as Sindel's bodyguard in this, that she would go around Kitana's oath and back in the name of Sindel, because Shang Tsung says we're gonna revive Sindel from her revenant and use her in the coming battle because she's like really, really strong. She can beat Cetrion. I believe because I don't remember Edenians, I believe, are part god, is the thing. And I think that's why Sindel, and theoretically other Edenians would stand a chance against Cetrion, whereas within the story, Jackson Jackie needed to put on Cetrion's crown and sap power from that. So that's kind of neat. Yeah, oh, so Shiva, after at this point she gets some good moments. Her loyalties are a little bit torn. I think that's a good conflict for her as a character. And in the opening dialogue, she's still like the personality that I really like in her. She has an opening animation where she has presumably Matara, some centaur's head in one hand. She just breaks it off by the horn and throws the chunks down. That's just the coolest thing to me. um yeah, but from then on, she gets totally played as a chump. Like, kind of, it's a little upsetting. I'm not, because the way Shiva, Baraka, and Kitana all united in Mortal Kombat 11 was so empowering and so cool. And seeing all of their loyalties get so turned over by Shang Tsung and Sindel's Gambit, which props, strong villain plan. I thought, oh man, it was kind of a bummer because Shiva gets beat up by Sindel, and then that gets framed on Kitana, which is what leads all of the Shokan to join Kronika. And that's just upsetting because I liked that Outworld triumvirate of Baraka, Kitana, and Shiva leading their respective groups. I think that's just super unfortunate. It's super sad that Shiva just got completely jobbed and then ditched behind, and we don't even see her for the rest of the story after her defeat basically gets scapegoated to turn everyone against Kitana. That's that was, and I don't mean it like from a storytelling standpoint. That's bad. That was just like that was an oof. That was really Oh, that was really sad. Sindel gets revived at this point, and I was kind of wondering because Shang Tsung says something to the effect of like, "We'll restore Sindel to her heroic personality," and that made me think that NRS heard out about the retcon, or they planned all along to undo that. But that's not the case at all. She's pretending at first when she gets awakened, and then it turns out she's still evil. And I still feel super torn about the evil Sindel. Sindel is such a neat character. Honestly, she might be the character I'm personally best with in this game. Playing as her just comes so naturally, and the screaming attacks and hair attacks are really fun to string together in a way that just doesn't feel as naturally as other characters. I love playing as Sindel. In MKX, I mained Cassie and Devora, and they're still my favorite characters. Devora, by the way, is nowhere in Aftermath, and that peeved me off. I think she and Kano are literally the only two characters who don't appear at all in this. And even Kano is connected to the RoboCop DLC, which isn't in any part of the canon story, but is still a table scrap. Um, yeah, we fight Geras twice, but we can't fight Devora once. Just give make one of those two an errand for Devora instead of Geras. It wouldn't have been hard. Uh, Um, so that was a little frustrating. But then again, Devora was so underutilized in MK11 in the first place that I almost didn't notice until towards the end. Uh, Back to Sindel. Gosh, NRS seems to really love evil Sindel, and I suppose what leading into they really lean into it in this DLC. And what peeves me off about that isn't necessarily the principle of it itself, but the it takes away the room for interpretation that could have been left when Sindel was just a DLC character without any connection to the story. Now it's in the story, and it's they really dig their heels deep into Sindel being evil, and it's cool because like she teams up with Shao Kahn. Even a story from Shao Kahn's point of view has never occurred in Mortal Kombat, at least if I recall correctly. He's always been locked behind, like, you couldn't play as him in MK2 or MK3, where he was the final boss in both of those. You could play as him in Trilogy, but that only kind of counts for multiple reasons. You didn't see him again until he was exclusive to the GameCube version of Deception. Then he's the boss of MK9. Oh yeah, and he's in Armageddon, but everyone's in Armageddon. So this is the first time he's had like his own story chapter and any like chunk of the story from his POV for such a portentous villain. And it was really cool to see him like fighting for Sindel's approval. Like he genuinely really likes her and wants to impress her with his feats of strength, and they just make one of those really cool supervillain power couples that's really neat. But all the same, it's a little sad that the room for interpretation for Sindel's brainwashing and is she good or evil gets kinda stomped all over by this. But I guess they really did have to pick the side to get the story going, so I won't like dwell on that. Before that chapter is Fujin's chapter. I got a little ahead of myself. Fujin is neat. I'm really happy that they decided to finally bring him back as fully playable because the idea of a fellow god of a natural element alongside Raiden is super novel, and I'm surprised that he showed up in MK4, then took a long hiatus till he returned with everybody in Armageddon, and then didn't show up again till this one. Like, I thought we'd see Fujin pop up. For a long time, I was convinced Fujin was in Deception when he straight up isn't. And it was just wild to me because Deception always struck me as a good opportunity to bring back Fujin. So he's finally back now, though. And I don't think he isn't a character like overflowing with personality, but I think he's just a very novel, neat character. He's very down to earth personality. He has a very sweet heart to heart with Jax that I thought went a long way in making him really likable. I came out really liking Fujin, and I happily welcomed his return. It's just super refreshing to see him back, especially with how many 3D characters get so badly shafted on the subject. They name drop Havoc and Chaos Realm. And I'm like, for the love of God, just bring back Havoc or someone from Chaos or Order Realm. He's cameos in MK9 in Noob's Ending. He's pretty much the main villain of a chunk of the comics and dies, but that all kind of means nothing in Mortal Kombat at this point. He gets I feel like he's probably name dropped somewhere in MKX, then in MK11, he gets name dropped here. Just bring him back already. He's such a neat character, and bring back some of the other Chaos and Order realm. Okay, I will stand Dairu until the day I die. Rue. No, Dairu is the most slept on Mortal Kombat character. He's such a cool character, and nobody pays attention to him. He's the best. I'm the only person who likes Dairu, and I love Dairu. The other day, I was kind of warming up, playing some Mortal Kombat 11, yeah, as one does. And I had leveled up Kung Lao a bit, and there are character references in the character's gear, like you can give people different weapons, different customized tools. And one of Kung Lao's belts is called Shrunken Head of Dairu, and it's just a belt with Dairu's shriveled, decapitated head. And I'm like, oh, you didn't have to do him like that. He's not Su Hao. It's funny when you do it to Su Hao every 10 minutes. Dairu's a good boy. Don't be mean to Dairu. I miss Dairu. Bring back Dairu. Enough about Dairu. We were talking about Fujin. Fujin came out really great in this. He has that really cool saber sword. Um, The crossbow is back, which I kind of didn't expect because it was always so random in MK4. After I love how in the Shao Kahn and Sindel chapter they come across Sonya and she doesn't talk because Ronda Rousey was probably like, "Money, please," and it's like, "Oh God, whoops a daisies." That's hilarious to me. Shao Kahn and Sindel do some damage, and it gets real dark because connected back to when Sindel played Shiva and played everyone for fools, got everyone on her side. It gets kind of dark, and it's a little like again. I don't like Liu Kang in this game, but when he and Kitana got their butts handed to them, and they just completely like this is completely like the chapter evil of Mortal Kombat. Like, it's like here's all the bad guys. Here's like what could have happened if the bad guys won this final battle. I think that's a cool way to take advantage of the time travel element. Um, I think that's just a really neat way to go about it. That said, it was very disheartening to watch as expected, and like to their credit, Kotal's head gets flung off the boat at some point. Man, it was like a grim sight. Granted, it didn't hit as hard as it could have because I knew it was all kind of paper thin, the way how just flexible mortality in Mortal Kombat is. What do you know? Because Shao Kahn is only alive in this because I thought Kitana killed him in that battle in the Mortal Kombat 11 story. Stephanie Brownback, I think it was, on Twitter went out of her way to be like, no, Katana blinded Shao Kahn. And I was like, why does it even matter if the world just ended? Like, but then it's like, oh, I see. So they've been planning this for some time. That kind of surprised me. Then we get the Shang Tsung chapter, which it, when Shao Kahn and Sindel are winning, it's a little depressing, a little upsetting. When Shang Tsung is winning, it is a delight. Like Shang Tsung's another character who I love. It's been way too long since we've seen him. It's Kerry Hiroyuki Tagawa at his absolute best. He's just he might be the one of the best actors in this. He just sells it with those facial expressions that he did with the mocap. There's a point where he throws Tarkatan into a pit of acid. He just like burns this prolonged, stretched out like death. And Shiva and Baraka are both so grossed out, and Shang Tsung can just go, "My sincere apologies," and just like smirks a bit. It's the best. It's so Shang Tsung. It's so awesome. And he gets the crown, and he's so insanely strong. He's like doing Dragon Ball Frieza Supreme Kai moves, like hands behind his back, just barely turning to address you and completely serving you. And he steals everybody's souls. Shang Tsung stealing Liu Kang's soul was incredibly cathartic, given my biases. He steals Sindel and Shao Kahn's souls, which, whether you love them or love to hate them, it was just super satisfying to watch. Then we get to the final fight between Shang Tsung and Liu Kang, and the game gives you the option to pick one of the two, and the ending will change depending on which one you choose. And they did this in Injustice 2 as well. There was a Superman and Batman ending, depending on which one you decided to pick for the last chapter. And what kind of frustrates me about that is that it makes the ending feel a lot less impactful when I have no idea which one is canon for certain. Granted, I have a much better idea which one's supposed to be canon in this one as opposed to Injustice 2, where I'm still just not entirely sure. Because I think both leave things open enough, but they're both in very opposite directions. So what kind of frustrates me there is that you either get the ending where Shang Tsung rules over reality, or the ending where Liu Kang restarts the timeline as he intended. And bizarrely, it didn't bother. Like, I'm kind of bothered that, oh, well, one is obviously not canon. Um, what's weird is I didn't mind the Liu Kang ending so much after all. It's kind of neat. He goes to see Kung Lao, reborn in the new timeline, in a rebuilt Wuxi temple, and he picks him to be his champion of Mortal Kombat, which I thought was nice. And I guess that's just the closure I really needed. That there will be Mortal Kombat again, that we will revisit this universe, so to speak. Even if it might not be quite as I remembered it, I'd be open to taking a look at something like that. I think that's just like the closure I needed. Whereas, because Mortal Kombat 11 originally just ended on a note of, well, we'll rebuild the timeline, I guess, and then it's just over. And I was like, wait, what? That's it? I'm not saying I'm over the moon about it. This didn't necessarily like fix all the problems I had. I thought, it was okay. At least they didn't make it worse. I'm kind of in this weird state. I kind of wonder how I'll feel in a few days because there are things that really bother me about it, and there are things that are super cool about it. We got a little more, like each character that does show up just kind of like, I'm gonna say my piece and leave, but we got more Baraka being within the hierarchy of the new outworld government. How he's like, Shiva, you and I are equals, remember? You can't talk down to me anymore. I gotta be in on this too. That great bit where he can smell Shang Tsung past his disguise, and you can just tell the look on Shang's face, like, oh boy. That whole bit is awesome. I'm a little upset that they uploaded that scene early because it might be one of the best ones in the whole thing. Just the interactions between those characters in that acid pit bit are so priceless. And yeah, and it explains a bit like why did we bother clarifying that Shao Kahn lived. There's a couple characters where I'm like, wait, what happened to them? Because Sindel and Shao Kahn beat up Johnny and Cassie Cage, and maybe I just wasn't paying close enough attention, but I'm not positive they killed them the way they decapitated Kodal and threw his head off the boat. Maybe I just wasn't paying proper attention. But yeah, and I guess it doesn't really matter because the timeline is either reset or completely rewritten now. Anyway, it was super refreshing to see Fujin and Shiva and Nightwolf and Sindel again in that capacity because it's been a while. I think Striker and Smoke are the only two Revenants left that need to be brought back to the spotlight, which I guess we don't really need to worry about anymore. By the way, Smoke IGN just did a poll. Smoke is the fifth most popular Mortal Kombat character. It was it was literally four ninjas and Johnny Cage in fourth place. It was Smoke, Johnny Cage, Noob Saibot, Sub-Zero, Scorpion. And most of that tracks. So I'm like, I didn't know that many people loved Smoke. Like he's fine, I guess. He doesn't show up that often. Oh well. I wouldn't mind seeing Smoke again someday, but I don't really need to either. We got friendships in this, and it's hilarious. I think Collectors kills me the most. What else? What else? Oh yeah, the guest characters too. They don't get utilized in the story at all, which, whatever. I don't know how they're going to explain how the Terminator shows up, but RoboCop is awesome. It's Peter Weller doing the voice in mocap, and he's great. His dialogue is just as corny as I'd want. He has an outro where it's like a newscast caption swings by. He's like, remember, crime doesn't pay. I love RoboCop. I think Spawn is still really cool, even though he was an older DLC. Yeah, they treated their guest characters all really well, whereas in MKX, they had some okay choices for guest characters, but some of them I just, like, I didn't really touch Alien or Predator. They were kind of how you'd expect. The only guest in MKX that really I would really revisit was Leatherface. I thought he was super interesting. Jason they did super cool stuff with, but he just was a little cumbersome and just not really suiting to my play style. I was all about just swinging around Leatherface's chainsaw. That's the coolest. Oh, and thinking about MKX, I don't think I finished my thought about how in MK11 I can barely play as Cassie or Devora because I played them so much in MKX that I don't even like. I try the same stuff in this one, and because they're altered and just slightly different, it doesn't even work. So my two favorite characters, I'm just not even good with. My like that's why I'm really good with Sindel, Scarlet, and Cabal in this one. Those are kind of my mains in a general sense in MK11. Oh, and Shang Tsung is really great too. I like playing as him a lot. Yeah, so that was Aftermath. I was kind of hoping I'm almost a little disappointed that I feel middling about it. Like, I either wanted to lose my mind over how good this was, or how they stuck their feet in even deeper. But they just kind of and and maybe on some level I should be thankful too, because I got some cool stuff out of it. I can be Shiva and Fujin again, and Sindel, and Cabal's always been there. What am I saying? I was just going through characters that I like. Oh well. I might be getting a little tired. I was staring at my Nintendo Switch for a few hours in a row playing Mortal Kombat 11 Aftermath. At least it wasn't a full campaign. It did feel a bit long because I think most like vanilla Mortal Kombat 11 chapters are four fights and the chapters in this could be five or six. And it all felt, it flowed pretty well. Yeah. So that was Mortal Kombat 11 Aftermath. I kind of wish I had a hotter take that I could be over the moon with, but what can you do? It is what it is. Hope you all enjoyed listening. This has been Striker Star 19. Have a nice day.